Well, welcome today to the Aspire Connections. Our subject today is going to be scholarships, which I know that you're all very excited about. We are too. I'm happy to have with us a colleague from the scholarships team. Amy Holland is going to be leading us today, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. Just so you know, we've got a lot of information that she's going to be delivering today. As you know, the scholarship is a robust application process, and Amy has a lot of really good information to share. We thought it might be a good idea to save questions until the end. You can go ahead and put your question into the chat so you can kind of get it off your mind, and then you don't have to kind of hold on to it. But then we'll review those questions at the end, answer the questions there, and or people can jump in and ask questions in person as well. So, Amy, let's begin.
Thanks, Nomi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Holland. I use she, her pronouns. I'm just going to do a quick intro before I pull up the slides. And also, you will receive a copy of these slides near the end or after the presentation. So there's a lot of information on them, but you'll have them as a reference as well. I work at OSAC along with Nomi and other folks, and I am a scholarship portfolio coordinator. I've been in this role for about a year. Prior to that, I worked with scholarships with our largest partner, Oregon Community Foundation. And prior to that, I worked at OSAC with primarily with the Oregon Promise Program and ORSA. So I may recognize or know a few folks and names here, which is great. And for other folks, it's good to see you and meet you. Before I pull up the slides, I also wanted to introduce my colleague, Samantha, if you want to just wave or say hi.
Hi, everyone. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Thanks, Samantha. Samantha is here just as support to kind of listen and maybe help answer any questions at the end. She is our scholarship processing coordinator. And so you may hear from Samantha related to reviewing applications, uploading transcripts, answering phone calls and emails, and supporting students and supporting you all with help you may need. All right, so this presentation is called Scholarships 101 and beyond. I really tried to go over some of the basics and then more in depth on things that you may be interested in knowing if you've been around the scholarship application for a while. So here are our topics we're going to cover for today. I'll talk about kind of timeline and overview, the scholarship catalog and tips. We'll talk about creating a student portal account and then the sections of the scholarship app. I have some more detailed information about section 2 of the app. We'll talk about special situations and making corrections on student applications. And then we'll talk about the partner portal and how high school staff can upload transcripts. And at the end, we'll have time for your questions. All right, this is our timeline for the scholarship app this year. The application opened a couple weeks ago on November 1. Nomi asked me before we started to just share how many applications we have going so far. It's been 2 weeks with the application open. So far, we have about 4,500 scholarship applications started and almost 500 applications submitted. The numbers are definitely going to increase over the coming months, but that just gives you an idea. There are a lot of students in there who are already working on their applications, which is great. In December this year, the FAFSA and the ORSA will open and students can start completing that. And then our early bird deadline for scholarships is February 18th, 2025. And that deadline, if students meet the requirements, then they'll be entered into a drawing for a $1,000 scholarship. So it's really just an incentive to help encourage students to submit a little bit early. And then the final deadline this year is March 3rd. All application materials and required documents need to be submitted by that date. And all of our deadlines at OSAC are at 11:59 p.m., so the very end of the day. So for the OSAC Scholarship Program, we have over 600 different scholarships. So students, they only need to complete one application with us, but that gives them access to the 600 plus scholarships that we have. And each scholarship in this portfolio is unique. So each scholarship has its own eligibility criteria and requirements. And I just want to give you an idea here that most of our scholarships use a combination of different criteria to select students. So it could be focused on specific major or academic performance, could be focused on the student's background, demographics, the high school where they graduated from, the region where they live. It could focus on specific skills, talents, maybe it's artistic skills or career technical skills. Many scholarships look at financial need, and then other scholarships may look at activities that the student has participated in, like sports or orchestra, for example. So we have on our website the scholarship catalog, and I have a few slides here just to give you some tips about how to navigate this catalog. And I want to start by saying the catalog lives on our website, but it's outside of the student portal where students are actually completing the application. So the catalog is available year round, and you and your students can use that catalog as a tool to look out of our 600 plus scholarships and review their requirements and criteria and see which ones are a good fit for the student. I do recommend that you download the PDF version of the catalog. If you just go to the catalog page and start searching by keyword on that page directly, it doesn't give you the best results or the most complete results all the time. So I would highly recommend that you, or as you're working with students, you download the PDF version and look through the listings, and you can either highlight or make notes on that catalog if you save a copy, or you can, have a separate list where you jot down the scholarship name and the number that you're interested in. So for example, if you're in that PDF catalog, you can search by specific keywords. Maybe you're working with a student who is in varsity sports, or you're in a specific county, or you have a student who is going into the healthcare field. Those would be examples of words to search for in the catalog, so you can look through and see which scholarships may be a good fit. We also have a group of scholarships that are called membership or employer funds. And on the catalog page, there is a button you can click for membership employer, and that will pull up all of those types of scholarships. Oftentimes, these are funds that are related to a student or their parent where they work. Maybe it's related to a union that they're a part of or some other type of membership organization. We have a wide range of them. And oftentimes students will know or hear through their parents' employer, for example, if that's an option for them. And as you're looking through the catalog, there's a lot of information there. Each scholarship has, information listed about who's eligible. And I just wanted to break down and give you some details about how to interpret some of that information you're seeing. One question we get a lot is whether undocumented or DACA students can apply for OSAC scholarships. Most of our scholarships are available to undocumented and DACA students. If the scholarship is only for U.S. citizens, then it will say that in the list of criteria in the catalog. But if it doesn't say that, then it should be available to undocumented and DACA students, and they're welcome to apply. You'll also see in the eligibility criteria for some scholarships, it will say a preference for a specific major, a specific college, etc., or maybe it'll say preference for first generation college students. That is really just a preference and not a requirement. So this is a place where if you're working with a student and they're not sure if they should apply, there is no harm in applying. I would encourage your students to apply even if they don't meet that preference criteria. And in general, if a student is clicking and applying on scholarships, even if they don't end up meeting all the criteria, it doesn't harm the student. We're not going to penalize them if they accidentally click the wrong scholarship. So you can encourage them to just apply for what they're interested in. Also in the catalog, it'll say for each scholarship what the apply type is. And I wanted to break down those terms so you can understand them. The first type is a one-time award. Pretty straightforward. If a student is awarded, they can only receive that scholarship for 1 year. The second type is called apply and compete. And for these scholarships, students can receive the funds for multiple years. It'll each scholarship is different, so it could be for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, etc. But the student has to complete a full OSAC application each year in order to reapply. And then when they apply, they're essentially competing among other new and returning applicants for that scholarship. So the student is not guaranteed an award each year, but they will be considered. And then the third category is automatically renewable. And students can receive funds for multiple years. They must complete an annual renewal application. This is a shorter version of our application. And it's kind of a separate process where we contact the student and say, hey, here's a short application, provide your transcript, let us know, basically, are you still in school, etc. And if they submit that short renewal app and they still are meeting all the criteria, then they are very likely to be awarded that scholarship again. They may also be required to submit the FAFSA or ORSA again each year. So in this kind of scheme of different apply types, automatically renewable is kind of the best type in terms of allowing students to receive the awards for multiple years. So if you have a student who's awarded a renewable scholarship, that's awesome. Hopefully they're going to receive the scholarship for a number of years to see them through college. Of course, the other scholarships are great as well, but they're not guaranteed to be awarded for multiple years. I also wanted to point out, every year we have brand new scholarship funds that are established by donors, and we have 14 new funds available this year in our catalog. It's a little bit hard to find them sometimes in there, but you can search the catalog by code. So the new funds this year are code 938 to 952. If you're just curious and want to take a look at those new funds, you can search for them with those codes. I also include at the bottom here just like an example of if Nomi had asked, what if people are looking for scholarships for trade or vocational studies for the students? How could you find those? And so I just wanted to include a few tips here as an example. First, students have to attend a Title IV eligible school in the U.S. For the private for-profit schools, which are often these trade or vocational schools, they may or may not be Title IV eligible, but if they are, that's great. Not all of our scholarship funds are allowed to be used at private or for-profit institutions, so that should be listed in the eligibility criteria in the catalog. But one way to search for these scholarships would be to pull up the PDF catalog and search, do Control F, and look for keywords such as trade, vocational, career, and technical education, and kind of look through the different scholarships to see what may be a good fit for that student. Okay, that felt like a lot of info about the catalog, but now we're going to get more into the student portal and the sections of the scholarship application. You're probably all familiar if you've been around and worked with OSAC and Aspire for a little while. We have the OSAC student portal. Students can create accounts here and they can apply for scholarships as well as many different types of grants that we have, including the Oregon Promise Grant. And that's all located on our website, oregonstudentaid.gov. These are some general tips for students when they're creating their student portal account. Encourage your students to use their legal name, use the same name they're using on their FAFSA or ORSA. And I would also recommend that students use a personal email address, because sometimes students will use a high school or other school-related email, and then if they lose access to that email later on, it makes it difficult for them to get back to their OSAC account. I also included some tips here. Hopefully some of you have created your own test account before in the OSAC student portal, but these are some tips on how to do that. Because you are allowed to create your own account in the student portal and just select this is a test application. You can make up your own test data and go through and kind of work through different scenarios and see how you move through the application as a student would. You can also do a test app for Oregon Promise and other grants that we have. But note that if you select test application, we will not be reviewing your application. So that is a good option for you to use if you want to see what the application looks and feels like for yourself. All right, these are the sections of the OSAC Scholarship app, and I'll go into more detail in the following slides. I do want to point out when a student creates a student portal account, the first thing that they're asked to do after they create their account is to fill out a profile. And this profile has basic info about their contact info, name, their high school, and that profile is connected and then leads to grant applications like Oregon Promise and then the scholarship app. So this is another example of where a test app could be helpful to see how it works. You know, when a student gets in, they fill out their profile and then they're directed to go off and fill out a scholarship app or certain grant applications they're interested in. And then the other sections of our scholarship app include transcripts, activities chart, personal statements, and a section where they select scholarships. And I'll go into more detail on those now. All right, the select scholarships section is section 2 of our application. I really wanted to spend some time explaining this section because it's so important. And if students understand and take the time to select these scholarships, then that will increase their chances of being awarded funds. So when a student arrives at this section, many students, especially if they're high school seniors, they will see scholarships that have been automatically selected or added for them. That's typically if it's a high school-based scholarship. They can't remove those scholarships. They're just selected for them. That's fine. But then students are also encouraged to search and add more scholarships in this section. So even if a student gets to this section and it says, oh, hey, you've already been selected for 5 scholarships just based on their high school, sometimes what happens is students will see, oh, great, I have scholarships here. I'm done with that section. I'm going to move on and just breeze through the rest of the application. But I would encourage your students to slow down and actually add more scholarships in section 2, because students are only going to be considered for scholarships that are selected there on their list. So that's an important distinction. We have over 600 scholarships available, but students are not, you know, applying for all 600 when they complete our scholarship app. They do need to have them selected in section 2. It can be time consuming and a bit tedious and challenging to work through this section of the application. It's a lot of like going back and forth through different screens to search and save the scholarships that a student is interested in. So this is a really good area for you to provide encouragement and technical support to your students and help them through this process, and just remind them like the value of spending a little more time on this section is that they will increase their chances of receiving funds. And also a tip at the bottom is that if a student, you know, breezes through or submits their application way before the March 3rd deadline and they want to add more scholarships later on, they can go back and do that up to the final March 3rd deadline. So even if you have a student who's already submitted, there's still more work that they can do to increase their chances here. All right, so this select scholarships section 2, I did include some screenshots here, so you'll have these slides as a reference because it is a challenging part of the application to move through. So the first thing when a student gets to this section, I want to point out here, this is what it may look like at the top with a green check mark for a student who first arrives at this section. If they've already have those automatic add scholarships there based on their high school, they may see a list of scholarships and then a green check mark. And that is one thing we're trying to work to improve in the app. It can be a bit confusing, like they think they're already done because there's a green check mark. But I would encourage students to click on that add or remove scholarships button. And when they do that, they're going to get to this page where there's a few different tabs. The first tab says which scholarships they have already selected. There is a recommended tab. There's a tab just for membership employer funds. And then there's the all tab on the right side. So I talked earlier about looking through the catalog for specific scholarships. I would encourage, your students to look through the catalog, jot down the scholarship numbers or names of the scholarships, but the numbers are pretty easy. Jot down the number so they have a list, and then go to this section under all, and they can enter in the number that they want to search for. So for example, here, student is interested in Fund 112, the Michael Mosier Scholarship. So they're going to enter in 112 and hit enter. And then once they see that pulled up, they'll hit view apply. This, as you're probably aware, if you've been in the application for a little while, this section is clunky and the search field is clunky. It's not necessarily going to pull up scholarships by keyword here. So I would highly recommend using the name of the scholarship or the number to search and find them. And then after they click that view apply button, they're going to see a list of the eligibility criteria for that scholarship. If it looks like a good fit for them, then they need to hit save at the bottom. Once they hit save, it's going to turn green and it'll say save successfully, and then it will say return to list. So they'll hit return to list, and then it brings them back out to the main section 2 of their app. And they'll see here under selected scholarships, they'll see that new scholarship they added in their list. So you can see it takes a little bit of time, can be confusing to students where to go next. So if they have a list of 5, 10, or more scholarships that they're wanting to add, they're going to go through this process of hitting add, remove, and saving each scholarship. They may not get through that all in one day, but I would just encourage your students to kind of have a list, know what they want to apply for, and you can help give them technical support to get through that process. The next section of the application is the transcript section, which is really important. After the student submits the application, a transcript error or a missing transcript is the only reason that their application will be rejected by OSAC. Students can upload their own transcript, they can mail a physical copy of the transcript, or the option that we highly recommend for high school seniors is to request that their high school upload the transcript for them. That is the option that a lot of our high school seniors use. The students should wait to provide their transcripts to us until their fall term grades are available, so that's typically in January. And I do have some slides at the end here to talk about the process, how this uploading transcript process works from the side of the high school. If you or other staff or people at the high school are uploading transcripts for your students, I do have some tips about that. Some notes at the bottom. Sometimes students try to send us their transcript via email. We don't accept those. Make sure that the student's full name is on the transcript. And this is more like a tip for students who are already in college, but be sure to include all college transcripts, especially if a student has transferred between different colleges. Next section is the activities chart. Students can submit up to 20 different activities. And the purpose of this section is really for the student to share with us how do they spend their time outside of the classroom. Just gives us a better, fuller picture of the student and what they do. So students are asked to include the dates of activities, an estimate of the hours on that activity, and to just include a sentence about responsibilities or tasks for each activity. There are 3 different categories for the activities. Students are not required to enter activities in every category. So if you're working with a student and they really can't think of something in one category, that is okay. There's no penalty for that. But I would encourage you, as you're talking with students, if they're really struggling to come up with activities, to help them just think creatively of how they spend their time. Because they don't all have to be formal activities. It can be more informal as well, which I'll talk about in these categories. So the first category is called school activities. Basically, this is extracurricular activities. So this can include clubs, student leadership, um, sports, music, band, theater, anything related to their school. The second category is volunteering. I also think of it more broadly as community activities. Because these activities, it may be that a student is volunteering at a nonprofit or a food bank or an animal shelter on a regular basis, but there are other ways that students are supporting their community or their family or neighborhood as well. So these could be informal things like helping younger siblings or cousins with homework or caring for them after school. It could be caring for helping a neighbor or an elderly family member, for example. Could be helping out with cleanup in the neighborhood, helping with their faith community, etc. So this is, I think, a category where there's a lot of potential for you to, talk with students who may not feel like they have as many formal traditional activities. If they have a lot of family or other obligations that take up their time, that's a good place to highlight that in this section. And then the third category is called paid work history. And this could be formal jobs that they have outside of school time or over the summer, but it also could be more informal work that they've done, whether that's babysitting, yard work, helping neighbors, giving rides, etc. And in general, we just try to encourage students to, think about their time, how they spend their time, and include a mix of different activities that show a range of who they are and what they do. The next section is on personal statements, and the next slide shows what the actual prompts are for these statements. But there are 3 required essays and 1 optional essay. There is a character limit, 1,900 characters, which comes out to about 350 words. In general, we just encourage students to share their story via these personal statements. This is really how selection committee members who are reading the applications, how they learn about what a student is passionate about and who they are as a person. And these personal statements can be really compelling reason for committees to select students for scholarship awards. So encourage your students to focus on what they're passionate about, what motivates them in their studies or in their family or community, what is exciting to them. I always find that, when I'm reading an essay from a student who is really excited or passionate about something, it really shines through in the way that they're describing things vividly, and you can really see that passion and inspiration that they have. So that helps to make for a compelling essay. And we also encourage students to share authentically. They don't need to, obviously, they don't need to make things up or over embellish things. So to share authentically, but also to share to their own comfort level. We're not asking students to share information that is very private to them and that they're not comfortable sharing in this platform. So you can kind of help students navigate and figure out what level of sharing authentically feels good for them. We also tell students that they may be able to repurpose these essays for other scholarship applications or college applications. Maybe they can tweak or pull sentences or paragraphs from one essay and work them into another similar essay. And, in an essay, we don't need students to repeat kind of more basic info like their high school name or their GPA because we have that other places in their application. These are the personal statements. They are the same as last year's personal statement, so you can find them on our website. They're pretty broad, and we try to keep them broad so that students can really choose how and what they want to share in each of these areas, whether it's about their educational goals, their family and community, or something in their personal life that has had a big impact on them. The 4th essay at the bottom is optional. It's not there's no penalty if the student doesn't complete that essay. A lot of times students use that last essay if they have had some kind of significant change in their family or financial situation in the last year or two that may not be reflected or up to date on their FAFSA or ORSA. That can be helpful information if they want to share. Sometimes students share that there is a significant medical cost or burden in their family that makes things challenging, or they could share if there's been a loss of income or a job in their family more recently that may not be reflected or up to date on their FAFSA or ORSA. That can be helpful information as well. But as I said, that is optional. I wanted to give you an idea of kind of who is reading these scholarship applications. There are actual people reading these applications. It is a real pleasure for folks on our selection committees and us as OSAC staff to read students' applications and especially their essays. So we have a few thousand selection committee members across the state, some outside the state as well, who read the scholarship applications, and they form these selection committees that then decide which students will be awarded based on the eligibility criteria for each scholarship. So these committee members, they may be former teachers, educators, they may be donors for specific scholarship funds that want to be involved, or they may be just other volunteers who work with specific professions or just have a general interest in supporting students. So we have a wide range of people reading applications. Also, as OSAC staff, we do participate in some of the process of reading the applications and helping with selection as well. But for the most part, it's volunteers and donors who are reading the applications and selecting who's awarded. So I tried to kind of explain that to help students think about kind of the end audience who's reading their application and their essays, to think of that as they're putting their application together. And these are a few essay writing tips we like to share. One is for students to be descriptive, specific, and clear, especially in their essays, because it's really helpful. If I'm reading an essay from a student and they just kind of answer the question about their educational goals really broadly, and really it's kind of vague, like, oh, I've always wanted to be a teacher and that's my plan, and I'm going to complete my degree in 4 years. That's not as compelling to me as an essay where a student is talking about, a specific class or teacher that they had that got them really interested in being an educator, and, what they're excited to be studying in the next few years at college. So encourage your students to provide details that really paint a picture in those essays. We also tell students to avoid using slang, using abbreviations or acronyms or spelling those out, and to avoid using too much humor. I think a little bit of humor is okay, but you can help students kind of figure out where the line is. Obviously, this is more kind of them writing in more of a professional way, which they may not be used to, and overusing humor may not be received well by the committee members who are reading the application. Another tip is for your students to write their essays in a separate document, saved document where they can continue to work on it, and then copy the final version into their scholarship application, because the scholarship app may time out. If they're working on their essays for a long time with their application open and they go off and do something else and come back, it may time out and erase what they had. So that is one area where you can help students kind of figure out the logistics of saving somewhere else and then copying it in. And also, of course, we encourage students to proofread their application, get some help from other people they trust, get feedback on their essays and their application as a whole, instead of just, writing it quickly and submitting what they have. All right, so those are all the main sections of the application, but I did want to point out that many of our scholarships, not all of them, but many of them have additional requirements. So those, 4 personal statements, the activities chart, the transcripts, that's all part of our regular application. But as you're looking through the catalog or when a student is in the application selecting scholarships, they will see any additional requirements. These are going to be specific to those scholarships. There are different types of additional requirements. So one, it could be that they need to answer a short question. It could be what's the name of the person who is employed at this company that you're related to, or it could ask something else, just a short answer. There are also a number of scholarships that have their own additional essays. So there will be one or more specific prompts and a word limit for the student to answer. And for some scholarships, they may need to upload an additional document or a letter of recommendation or something else. Tips for this. One is the student can submit their application and still work on those additional requirements up until the final deadline. So if they want to get their app in so that their transcript can be reviewed more quickly and then come back a couple weeks later and work on those additional requirements, that is okay. They just need to have all their required documents and essays submitted by the final March 3rd deadline. I would also say if you have students who are like hesitating, not sure if they should take the time to answer an additional essay or complete these requirements, you could encourage your students, if it's a scholarship that seems like a really strong fit for them and it's a matter of writing one additional essay, I would encourage them to think of it as, there may be less competition and fewer applicants for this scholarship because it does require an extra couple of hours writing that essay. So help them think about like that investment of time. It may, get a bigger return for them in terms of possibility of being selected. I have some tips here and just things to help your students stay on track after they submit their application. One is students may need to provide an updated transcript, and I'll talk a little bit more about making those corrections. 2 is to help your students get into the habit of checking their email regularly and make sure they know which email they used on their OSAC account. So check that email. And if they're not sure, they want to, just log in, they can always log into their student portal account to see if there are any updates there that they may have missed via email. If a student changes their email or their contact info at any time, they should update that in the OSAC student portal. Also, if they change their major or their college choice, then they should update that, and they can do that at any time, even after the deadline has passed. That's really important for students to know because the application does ask them to just pick one college choice. Now, when you're working with high school seniors, at this point, they may not know definitely which college they're going to attend, right? So they have to pick one college choice. So I would encourage them to just, pick their top pick or what they think is most likely where they'll attend. And then to go back and once they have confirmed or if they decide they're going to change schools, to go back and update that college choice in the student portal. Because if they're awarded a scholarship or they're being considered for scholarships, that college choice may determine if they're eligible for that to use that scholarship. So that's really important. And in terms of our timeline for notifying students if they're awarded for scholarships, OSAC will email students between April and August if they're awarded. So a student will receive an email and they will have to then log into the student portal, review the award details, and either accept or decline the award. And then they have the opportunity to fill in a little thank you note as well for the donor. So, it can be a little hard for students to kind of wait to hear back if they've been awarded. It is a longer time period, April through the summer of when they will be notified if they're awarded for certain scholarships. But just encourage them to continue to check their email and stay on that in case they're awarded a scholarship. I will also point out if students are not selected for any scholarships, they won't hear from us. So, we're going to email them once we review their app and their transcript to say your app is all set, it's valid or not. and then we will email if a student has been awarded. But if they're not awarded scholarships, then they're not going to hear from us.
Amy, sorry, I just wanted to
Yes.
let you know you've just got just about 10 minutes until we want to start some questions.
Okay, 10 minutes. Thank you. I'm getting towards the end here, so that sounds good. I won't go into too much detail. I know you're probably getting a lot of info about FAFSA and ORSA, but I do want to point out in the scholarship catalog, you will see for each scholarship whether FAFSA ORSA is required for the student to file or not. So in general, a lot of our scholarships require filing the FAFSA or ORSA, so I would just encourage your students to do that, of course, so they can access other financial aid as well. And there's information, plenty of info on our website and other materials and presentations if you want to learn more about FAFSA and ORSA. All right, I am going to go a little quickly through some of these so we have time for your questions, but there's a lot of info here for you to refer to. My tip, if you have students who are graduating early, like they're graduating as juniors, their application may end up being rejected. That's kind of normal in terms of our process. But you as somebody who works with a student, or if you have access or connection to the high school registrar or other staff, I would encourage the high school staff to be in communication and reach out to OSAC or respond if we reach out, because we're going to need to confirm with the high school if this is in fact an early graduate, because we don't want to send people through our application if they're only a junior, they're not actually graduating this year. My tip about student names, first of all, is for students to use their full legal name on the application. And then there is a section for additional names. So if the student has a previous last name, additional last names, a preferred name that they use a lot, they should put that in the additional names section, because that's going to help us to match and confirm their info on their transcript. And the student's application will likely be rejected if on their high school transcript they have a preferred name that doesn't match the name on their application. Like I said, that additional name section can be really helpful for students to add names there. For high school students who have taken college coursework, these students are encouraged but not required to include that info in their college history section. And they have the option of providing that college transcript as well. So that can be great for the student to show that they have taken college coursework, but it is not required for your high school seniors. For international students, just be aware if you do have international students at your high school, they are not eligible to apply for OSAC scholarships or grants. And that is a separate category from undocumented and DACA students. These are students who are in the US with a valid visa, and some of the examples of different visa letters are listed here. And these are also on our website. All right, I went through kind of the overall timeline at the beginning. This is kind of our more detailed March, getting down to the wire timeline for you to be aware of. So as I said, the final deadline is March 3rd. 1 week after the final deadline, March 10th, we have a deadline for appeal requests. This is a process that's only for students who have encountered some kind of barrier, a significant barrier to submitting by the regular deadline. It could be some big kind of medical family emergency that happened on March 3rd, for example. It could be a technical issue or something else that was a significant barrier, but the student can log in or reach out to us between March 3rd and March 10th if they need to submit an appeal request. March 14th is generally when we recommend that high school staff upload transcripts on behalf of their students. And then March 31st is the final date for students who have a rejected application to submit corrections, which are typically submitting updated transcripts or fixing their name. So March 3rd is our deadline to get the app submitted. And then if their app gets rejected, March 31st is the last date to make corrections. All right, I'm not going to go too much. I'll also say the FAFSA and ORSA, I would just encourage your students to submit it as soon as possible, definitely by early March for scholarships, but hopefully sooner so they can be eligible for other things as well. I think we're kind of running low on time. So for rejected apps, the goal is for students to get a valid application. And if you have a student who has a rejected app, I would just encourage them to work on it, resolve it, and make those corrections as soon as possible. They may get rejected multiple times if it's a complicated issue. So they can always reach out to OSAC to get some help with that if they're confused about what to do. It also, once they make a correction, they're going to be in a pending status so that we can re-review their app. It may take a few weeks or longer, depending on timing and staff capacity. They may be waiting to see if their application is accepted and valid. So we just want to allow some more time for them. Okay, and then the last couple slides I have here before we go into questions. I won't go into all the details, but this is really a reference, especially if you or someone else at your high school is using our partner portal to upload transcripts. This is a test generally for registrars or staff who have direct access to student transcripts. They can upload a transcript on behalf of the student for their scholarship app. If you need to request an account or get other help to reactivate an account, this is the email address to use. And this, as I said, if you are using the partner portal regularly and uploading transcripts in a few months from now, say January, February, I would just hold on to this information and feel free to reach out if you have questions, because you will see on your list of student applicants, there are different review statuses, and I just wanted to provide some more information and tips on what each status means. And then my last screenshot here is just to kind of show you what it looks like when you're in that list of students. If you've already uploaded a transcript, you'll see a remove or view button. You can click. If you have not yet uploaded a transcript, then it will look like this on the bottom where it will just say upload. And that's just an indication to you of who you have already provided a transcript for on your list. Okay, we made it through. These are our social media channels that we have. This is some information here about how to contact the scholarship team. You can also use the contact us form on our website. You can email us or call. The same goes for your students if they're having any issues or need support. And I'm going to put a link in the chat as well. We have a brief survey where we'd like to get feedback. This presentation is called Scholarships 101. If you want to answer a few questions about, if this was helpful or not, that would be great. I will put that in the chat. I'm going to stop my share for a moment and we'll go to questions.
Okay, thank you, Amy. That was great. So you were able to answer some of the questions that came in throughout the presentation, but I wanted to scroll back and Samantha, I don't know, have you combined a couple of questions, or do you see a way that forward that you wanted to tackle this, or do you want me to just go ahead?
I think you can just go ahead. I saw a
Okay.
handful, maybe less than that need to be, but yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I did just put a PDF of the slides in your folder or in the chat, and we will be following up with a recording of this as well, so that you can share it with other folks who might be helping students. And then please feel free to share that PDF as well. So I think what I want to do is start with. There are some questions around that early bird deadline and when the transcripts are being submitted, and if, making sure that students are eligible for the early bird deadline if the transcripts are coming in a little bit later. Can you just be sure that we understand that timeline in terms of the February 18 and then transcripts that might need to be there do they need to have the transcripts, for example, in order to be eligible for the early bird deadline?
That is a great question. I can't answer that with 100% certainty, but I can look into that and send you an answer because I don't want to answer it wrong right now.
Okay,
That is a great
because
question.
it is kind of a stretched out timeline there, and so we want to be sure. I did see kind
Yeah.
of a quick question, which is, about changing colleges after the application's been submitted. So can you just say that again? How the kinds of things that they can submit or they can change after the application has been submitted,
Yes, the question was just like if they can change the college after.
and how?
Right. Um, they can definitely change their college choice at any time after they've submitted the application, after they've been awarded a scholarship, um, because we know that, you know, things happen, students change their mind, plans change. So, I mean, just a brief example, let's say a student submits their app in March. In June, let's say they decide they're going to a different school, they go in and update that. And then let's say in July, they get selected and awarded for a scholarship. Um, Basically, when they're awarded, we're going to look at whatever college they have currently in their college choice section, and we're going to make sure whichever scholarship they're selected for, it's an eligible school for that scholarship. If they decide in August there's another last minute change and they're going to, this university instead of this community college, they need to update that in the college choice section. That sends a notification to us as staff, and we will check to make sure they're still eligible for their scholarship award. If that's the case, great, they're good to go. If they're not eligible based on that college change, we will notify and reach out to the student. But they can log in and make updates even after they have submitted or been awarded, especially with that college choice. Because that basically tells us if they can use the fund, if they can use the funds at that college and where to send the money to. So we don't want to send the money to the wrong financial aid office.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So one question is regarding the activities chart and how it's difficult for some activities that students are involved in to fit into the categories. So personal enrichment, for example, maybe violin lessons in the community, participating in youth symphony, or long-term karate classes or something. So how could a student represent sort of that fuller picture of their activities if it doesn't fit quite with school or paid or volunteer community?
That's a good question. I would say I wouldn't agonize too much about which category to put it in because I know for myself, I've read and reviewed many different scholarship applications. I am just kind of glancing through the list as a whole. And I think that's what our selection committee members do, and that they're not too worried about, oh, this is in the wrong category. So I agree, they're not perfect categories that kind of describe everything, but I would just encourage your student to kind of be like, no, what seems like a good fit, put it in there. And it's just more important to have the activity listed and describe it well, as opposed to which category it goes in, because the reviewers are just going to read and learn more about the student either way.
I was thinking they could also use that optional question, the optional prompt essay, if they felt that there was something that they couldn't fill that fit somewhere else as well. Another question is a couple of, I kind of think, technical questions regarding both the concern that we regularly hear from coordinators about that test application checkbox and it getting done by mistake by students, and like the desire to have it be in a place that is less, I don't know, visible to students or that kind of thing. So I think it's certainly something we want to be sure that people are checking when they're telling their students and they're having them work on it. But I don't know if you have suggestions or that kind of thing for that.
I will say we are aware and we would love for it to be a little more user friendly as well. So that is definitely good feedback to hear and that we're aware of. Second is that at least in the last cycle and what we will do this cycle is we will send at least 1 to 2 emails to anyone who has a test application before the deadline, warning them that it is a test application. And if they are a real applicant, it gives them instructions to fix it. So we did start doing that in the last application cycle, and we'll do it again now so that they have a clear warning of, hey, we're not going to review your application and here's how you can fix it.
And multiple, I think they got multiple reminders
we
that
did
they had
it
to
a
check.
couple times leading
Yeah,
up to the deadline. Yeah.
yeah, good. Okay,
There
thank
is a
you.
new like information logo and it's highlighted orange that says this, if you check this box, it will not be reviewed. So hopefully that helps this year as well.
Great, thank you, Sam. Okay, let me just take a quick look. A couple of, we got a comment saying it would be extremely helpful to have a document listing scholarships open to all Oregon students, just so that there's kind of a more broad range of, looking for a broad range rather than just identifying specific institutions, and asking if this exists anywhere in terms of like narrowing down or opening up, I guess, opportunities more broadly. We don't really have any lists
Yeah,
like that.
I will say that in the functionality of the application, the way that section 2 is supposed to work is that it has a recommended tab based on the information the student has entered, like their major, their school, etc. It should recommend scholarships to them. Currently there's a technical issue with that, which our IT team is working to fix. But when it's working the way it should, which hopefully will be very soon, it does take the information the student has entered, and it also recommends scholarships for them. But yeah, there are a lot of scholarships to wade through. Some of them are more broad and open to kind of a really wide swath of students. Many of them are more specific. So I do acknowledge it is a lot to wade through. Can be hard.
Okay. Thank you. Another quick question here. Let me just get back down here. It's just a comment that, about another technical thing, that the diploma or GED in a correction facility often trips students up as well. I think we know that. We've seen that, but I don't know if they get feedback on that specifically, or if that matters to the skip logic of the form.
That's for the Oregon Promise team and
Oh,
their
is it? Okay.
application. Yeah,
Okay.
it's because
Gotcha.
that profile kind of that's in the profile section that connects to all of our applications. So it is, some of those questions are more for specific grants, and then it
Understood.
spits them out to the scholarship app. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to go back up to the top just to make sure that we kind of touched on everything. Okay, that was the timeline. Transcripts, official or unofficial, Crystal is asking.
Either one is fine. They can
Either
submit
one. Thank
unofficial.
you. Vainu asks, can band sports at school count as these activities? Yes, I think we got that question answered. Personal enrichment. There was also a question here about, we added the email address in, that's great. So somebody asked if there was a way to see a list of students who completed and submitted the OSAC applications, similar to FAFSA Plus.
I would say that the person who's uploading transcripts, they have the best access to a list of students who have applied and what their application review status is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a high school registrar or somebody else who uploads transcripts in the partner portal, that is going to give you a pretty full list of your students and where they are in the process. And I would refer to those final slides I had that say, they say app not submitted, awaiting review, those kinds of statuses, to get a breakdown of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in the partner portal, so if someone doesn't have access to the partner portal, they need to make sure that they get that.
Yes, and they need to
Okay.
have access in the partner portal to specifically with permission to upload transcripts.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And then,
if they reach out to that partner portal support email if they're confused, if they think they need some kind of different type of access. Also, I'm okay with staying a few minutes longer to answer more questions if this space is still available. But however
okay.
you want to do it, Noe.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate that. Okay. I keep looking back through and I keep thinking, oh, I've seen all of them, but then I see another one. I did see a question asking about if they can find out what students, or how many of their students received scholarships and the amounts and that kind of thing. I will answer that question by saying, if you're an Aspire site, you could check in with your Aspire coordinator, because we have received a list of scholarship dollars that are attached to high schools from last year. So it's not divided by students, but you can see we can kind of use that information in a discussion to talk about how many applications were completed, how many students were awarded, and what that total number was. So we're kind of using that in terms of conversational, but it's not published or anything anywhere. So reach out to your Aspire coordinator for that information. Do you have anything to add about that, Amy? Okay. Someone's been, okay, that one was answered. Thank you, Sam. One person did say that it seems to be a technical issue about the recommended scholarships, that it wasn't loading or it wasn't working. They should probably do that. Let me pop in the OSAC form, right? This is the
We
help
are
form.
aware of the issue. I think Samantha is the one who found the issue, and I believe it's already been reported to our IT department to work on and fix it. So thank you for your patience. And it is a bug, a known issue right now that we're working on. So there's no need to report it. We're gonna fix it. Do you want to
Okay.
add anything to that, Samantha?
Nope, we got it. And just thank you for letting us know.
I will add in the scholarship help form. That's kind of the online. Folks are reading those. So if you have students who are getting stuck with something or they need help, that form is a really good way to follow up and get some information. That might be the same one. Did you already put that one in, Sam? Nope. Okay. I'm going to throw that in there. Okay. Okay. I think that we got most of them.
There's a question at 10:01 from Jill about the early bird deadline. So the question is, if they submit by early bird deadline and then go back in afterwards before the final deadline, will they still be entered into the early bird drawing? So basically, and I'll get some more details about exact requirements for transcripts for early bird, but here's my understanding. If they're submitting by the early bird deadline and their transcripts are all good to go, if they've met those requirements by the early bird deadline and submit, if they go back in later and add scholarships or complete additional requirements or tweak their essays, that is totally fine. Those changes will be captured up until the final deadline. Does that track with your understanding, Sam, or anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's my understanding of it too. I do just want to add, I know I answered it in the chat, but just so everybody is aware, we do accept official and unofficial transcripts as long as it has the student's name and the school name on it visibly.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. If anyone had a question in there that they feel was not answered, go ahead and unmute and make sure that we hear it right now. And if we don't hear from someone, then we'll go ahead and close up today. So I want to give you a last chance to be heard.
And I will get some more information in writing about exactly what are the requirements for the early bird deadline, how that works, so that I can share that with you, Nomi.
Thank you. Okay, and we will send those out to our coordinators. So yes, Shayla, did you have a last question? You popped in like you might be unmuting. No? Okay. Well, I'm so grateful to you, Amy. Thanks for joining today and participating and sharing so much information for us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Sam, as well, for joining in. We have a great scholarships team. It's really a pleasure to work with you. So thanks for getting us further down the road in our knowledge and ways that we can support students. I really appreciate you. Okay.